And just seeing how this has rallied is crazy. To say that I predicted this as well right before market open because of that divergence between Nasdaq and ES. Nasdaq sweeping out those major lows here from 17 October and supporting, and ES not taking that out and supporting a demand. Previous week gave a massive rally, and this week, well, what did I say? And look at what happened. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. And in this video I'm going to be going over how I make my pre-market plans and how I come up with my scenarios to look for trades, certain key levels that I'm going to look for, and how I just view the overall market an hour or an hour and a half before market opens. I'll show you now what I kind of look for, what I look for on the volume profile, what I look for here on the footprint, basic support, resistance levels, and how I create my scenarios to then trade from. So starting off over here, we had a big sell-off yesterday of like around 100 points almost. Yeah, 100 points from the pre-market highs till the lows of the day. A little bit over 100 points, and then we did everything yesterday. We went up, we went down, we went up, we went down, we went up again, and then at the end of the day, we went down. So there's not really much to look at on the volume profile of yesterday, but as I had the same levels of yesterday, I had resistance at the 67s and I had resistance at the 80s. You can see that both of them rejected very well. The 80s over here and the 67s as well, because this was market open, it was very quick. They rejected beautifully, but then we did bounce off a demand zone that we have from a while ago. Right over here, right? So this is an area of consolidation where then price rallied up from very aggressively and then made new all-time highs eventually after that. So that was very crucial demand and it reacted perfectly off of that. But then going over what to look for today is a little bit trickier because for now it's still an inside day. Obvious areas that I'll be looking at is obviously this demand around the 6600s where we bounced from. But I can see as well that around here, the 25s, 26s even, I'll call that like an area of support because we dropped down here yesterday, kind of made an M30 demand zone over here with which you can see this massive green candle here that pushed price up higher towards like the middle of the range of yesterday, and then we dropped further. But this, even though there was so much selling rejecting like these lows, price still supported over here and then made newer highs and even took a high day and some pre-market highs. So this is very crucial here from the 26s to the 6600s. Is an area of demand that is very strong, and as I recall there was some strong buying activity there at the lows. So as you can see here around the 18s, 16s, this is where we bottomed after that little retrace, and we just rallied so aggressively from that. You can just see it's just straight up, not a single red footprint bar in here in this whole rally up, which is insane and means to me that there's a lot of aggressive buying. And you can see that down here as well on the CVD. On the CVD, you just see up, which means there's a lot of aggressive buyers at that level. Then a little bit lower, earlier, same level, 18s, that rally happened as well. A lot of aggressive buying. You can see that here as well. A lot of aggressive buyers were willing to buy at these prices. That's the 66, 18s and stuff. So that to me tells me that there's a lot of support around here from like this 26s to the 6600. Let's just call it a big area. So I'll be looking there for support if price comes back into there to then maybe take the market long, targeting like the 80s or even higher. What I'm watching for now as well is it should be very crucial for buyers if they want to be successful in pushing price higher. They have to get above the 80s level, like the 66, 80s. You can see this is a clear resistance. We rejected here in the pre-market, pushed price down, market opened, we rejected once again. We dropped all the way down here, and then after dropping all the way down here, these buyers came in hot. They came in very strong, came to this 80s level, swept out and did a little fake out above these pre-market highs, and then end of day we dropped again. So if we really want to get a rally back to the upside on the S&P 500 here and even on the Nasdaq as well, the S&P has to get above this 80 level. Like that's just what bulls need to be able to do. If they don't succeed in that, I do think we're going to drop down further, take out yesterday's low, and then potentially take out here the 65 70s level, which is 17th October low, if I remember correctly. So that's a little bit what's in my head. As you can see, we're already rejecting the 67s once again here in the pre-market. And now, depending on the pre-market, which is still an hour and 20 minutes since till market open, we have to support, if buyers want to be strong, we have to support here around the 52s. So this is also an area where I'm watching price, what it will do around the 52s, because buyers should defend that if they want to keep this uptrend going. If they want to keep this uptrend going in the pre-market, buyers have to defend this, because otherwise going to drop down here again, and the likelihood of then us coming down here and then rallying all the way back up again. It is obviously possible because we did that here yesterday. It'll be a less good of a setup for me because if we drop down all the way here, would not be looking for like a bottom reversal. So I'd be looking if buyers are still present here around the 26s to the 6600s. I'd be looking if they're still present there, and I'd be waiting for a reaction first and then get in on a retrace or low volume node or structure or whatever. So that's a little bit of a lesser quality. I would much prefer us coming around here and then buyers being strong, breaking out above the 80s and then retesting the 80s, then getting long, targeting the 700s to the 710s and potentially the 720s. Another thing that I look at a lot and is crucial for me as well is in the pre-market looking what is happening around like these areas of consolidation. Like we're seeing clear resistance here now to 67s, and if you really look at it, price rallied up here with a lot of aggressive buying, that's okay. But then we've been consolidating here for quite a substantial amount of time, almost 3 hours now, and now we're breaking down. But what am I seeing inside of this consolidation? Well, take a look down here on the cumulative volume delta. This means the aggressive participants in the market, and you're seeing a lot of buying here and just basically an uptrend and a lot of buying here again, and you're seeing an uptrend on the cumulative volume delta, but you don't see that on the chart. This is the chart, right? But you don't see it on the chart. Price has made a higher high here, and then since that we have not broken this higher high, and basically what this is telling me is all these aggressive buyers were getting absorbed by passive sellers because they are hitting the market, they are entering the market, and they're trying to push price higher with aggressive buying. As you can see down here, they're buying, and this is an uptrend here on the CVD, but the actual price is not moving up, so that tells me they're getting absorbed with passive selling. So that's a very crucial part of context for me, and that just means that those sellers from yesterday that were selling over here are probably still present and still rejecting price to potentially push price down lower again. Another thing that I like doing is comparing what Nasdaq is doing to what ES is doing. So on the ES, we clearly see that at the end of the day, yesterday those pre-market highs were swept, and then we faked it out and we dropped again. But when you look at Nasdaq, those highs never got swept. So Nasdaq stayed under it. Nasdaq was the weaker index in this case, and then buyers on the Nasdaq weren't strong enough to push price higher above these highs. And then since then, Nasdaq also just stayed all the time in a downtrend, unlike ES, which has made some couple breaks of structures on the higher time frame, like here for example, and then we dropped again. But Nasdaq never broke this resistance. There was the same resistance here. Nasdaq never broke that, and we just kept dropping from there. So the overall tech sector is weaker, and that's something I do look at these divergences between the Nasdaq and the ES. So it tells me just that there's more weakness in the Nasdaq, and that can pull the whole market down, especially how much volume there is in the Nasdaq and how much influence it has on the overall economy with like the AI bubble now. As soon as that's weaker, it just pulls the whole market down basically. So that's something I look at as well, and I'm seeing on Nasdaq we didn't sweep out those highs and we dropped. Now we're resisting again at this area where sellers were strong. Another divergence that I see in the Nasdaq is this little dotted line here was 17 October lows, and on Nasdaq we did sweep that out, and on ES we didn't. So that's another divergence there, and that's a more major divergence than this one of yesterday intraday. So this tells me if we sweeped out this low here on Nasdaq, we haven't done that on ES, which is right over here, the 17th of October, that major low. We haven't swept that out on ES. Last time this happened was right over here. So as you can see, this is the 14th of November. Look at the Nasdaq on the 14th of November, right over here. We swept out this previous low that pushed price higher. We swept that out, and then we had a massive rally. Well, on ES, we didn't sweep this low out, which is also the same scenario. And then we had a massive rally. So that shows me that Nasdaq is overall the weaker index. So if it sweeps a major low and then starts supporting there, that can give a huge reaction in the market to the upside. Because if Nasdaq sweeps those lows and then starts supporting there, and ES stays above those lows and also supports in an area of support or an area of demand, like it happened right over here, it didn't sweep those lows, but it was supporting here in kind of an area of demand. Like the point of control was here on that day. There was just a lot of volume built there, and ES supported there. That tells me that there is a possibility of price having a massive rally, because if the overall weaker index sweeps out those major lows and then starts supporting there, that can be a very good early sign of a massive reversal. So knowing that, knowing those divergences, knowing that Nasdaq has not taken out these highs, well, that can cause for a major rally today, for example. So what I'll be looking for probably is a break, for buys at least, a break of these 6680s and a retest to then take the market long, targeting around the 700s to the 720s. Or if we drop down lower, I'll be looking for this to support where buyers were strong yesterday, and to then take the market long, targeting somewhere inside of this range and potentially the pre-market highs. If we go up and sellers from yesterday are still strong and they still want to reject price, and Nasdaq, for example, is rejecting here again and cannot break structure to the upside, that'll be a sell opportunity. So that's basically how I come up with these levels. As I said as well in the beginning of this video, I want these 66.52s to get supported, because that's where buyers need to hold if they want to be successful in pushing price higher, and that's literally what it's doing right now. As you can see, there's a good kind of confirmation here already on the footprint. A lot of trap sellers here and a B shape got created, and buyers are stepping in again and they're pushing price higher. But it is the pre-market, so I'm not really that interested in trading this. So that's a little bit what I use overall to find my levels, to find my context, what can happen in the markets. I use volume profile as well, obviously, but for yesterday there's not really much significant to look at, just a lot of volume overall. And for today, this was an area here of lower volume where price rallied first, and then it was on top of the structure. So that's why it was an interesting area for me. If we had this kind of resistance here, we now broke out of it in the pre-market, and now we're pulling back into an area of lower volume as well. This is where buyers need to step in and hold. So that's why I came up with that area. And then if we rally, for example, if we break out above the 80s and we retest and we're in a trade, in a long, for example, this is an area where I would also look out for an area of rejection where sellers might step in again, because once on this drop they were very strong to push price down lower and almost didn't transact any volume around here. So I'd be looking for a rejection probably somewhere here, and if I'm in a long trade, I'll be probably wanting to look to get out of my trade anywhere around here. So that's a little bit how I use the volume profile as well. And yeah, so my plan for today is basically see if this area can hold here around the 52s. If it can hold, I'll be looking to get in long, targeting the 80s and pre-market highs and the 700s, and maybe a little bit above, depends. If I can get or find any confirmation to get in longs anywhere here, I'll be waiting for that breakout above the 80s, then a retest to then getting long, targeting 700s, 710s, and 720s. If price comes up here, rejects the 80s once again, those same sellers as yesterday, I'll be looking for a reaction of sellers first to let them show their strength, and then get in on a retrace or a low volume node, something like that, to then take the market short, targeting probably the 52s first, and then the 35s, and then potentially even lower, depending on the aggressiveness of the selling. So that's a little bit of everything, what I look at. I look at the divergences in price and cumulative volume delta. Like I said, you see a lot of buying here on the cumulative volume delta, but price is not moving higher. That tells me there's probably a passive seller here at these highs absorbing all that buying. So that's something to look out for. I look between divergences in ES and NASDAQ. Like I said, the last time NASDAQ swept out those lows and started supporting, we had a massive rally when ES hadn't taken out those lows and started supporting as well. So those are all kind of things to look out for. And especially that NASDAQ did that yesterday as well when we started rallying from there. And there is support here at the lows. So that's an early sign where we might get a big rally today. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it or took away something interesting. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to get back at you or even make a video about it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.